San Francisco.
All right, you guys, let's get it. This episode 34 of Inner Demons. I'm going to get straight to it. But before I do, like always, let me just extend my appreciation to everybody that sent in positive comments, positive feedback, and constructive criticism. I appreciate it all. Really, I really do. For those of you that get at me on YouTube, those of you that get at me on my IG, or those that get at me direct, I appreciate everything that you guys been sending me. And you know, some of you have been going through your own personal experiences, and I appreciate that. You know, your questions and your comments, they really do help, because like I said before, when I go over this stuff, you know, I know what you guys want me to go in on. I know what you guys want me to touch on, and I know what I'm missing. So, you know, those things play in my mind when I'm talking about it. Anyway, also, I believe in episode 33, I told you guys that I cut 34 a couple of days ago. But like always, I'm my biggest critic. So, you know, I cut the episode, I sent it to Sandman to edit, and then the next day, again, like I usually do, I listened to it, and I was like, this is straight garbo. I'm not releasing this shit. So it's sitting on the channel in private, and that's where it's been for about 5 days now. So I'm going to try to redo it. And, you know, it's not that I'm second guessing myself what I'm talking about here. It's just that Corcoran is a big issue. It's a big thing in history. It's a big thing in my history. And I want to make sure that I touch on everything that I know you guys want me to touch on. And if I miss something, I don't want to keep going back and keep going back and keep going back and then having to go back over stuff. So I want to try to get it right. So that's what I'm going to try to do right now. I'm shooting for a live tonight with Sandman, and then I'm going to try to get out a war story for you guys as well. So anyway, at the end of episode 33, there was a lot going on. We just came off the incident with Mountain and the other guys, and we basically got 10 days before we go for our next run. And, you know, for those of us that got hit with the block gun, there's not that many of us. For those of us that did, though, this 10 days is sufficient time to heal up again. And it really does help to get that 10 days, because like I've said before, when you're out there and you're squabbing, you're doing your thug dizzle, you get hit with the block gun, you're going to know it, but you're not really going to feel it. You don't feel it till the next day, when you roll over in bed or something and you be like, oh shit, that's where I got hit with the fucking block gun. And it stiffens you up, man. So, you know, it gives you a good amount of time to at least work that shit out. Even if the bruise is still showing, at least the main part of it, it's worked out, and you know, you're loosened back up. So we got 10 days to get ourselves mentally and physically ready again. And again, it's back to a lot of squats, a lot of push-ups, a lot of burpees, and a lot of calisthenics. You know, I like lifting weights, and I'm always getting my weightlifting on when I'm in prison. That's something that I do every time. But because of what was going on in Corcoran, I shied away from the weights, because the last thing you want to do is get too big or get stiff and go out there and you're slow and you can't move. You got to be agile, and you got to be limber. You don't want to go out there and be all stiff because you know you've been lifting too many weights, man. No, that's what happens. So it was all about working on our conditioning, our stamina, getting that shit up, getting your wind up, our cardio. So, you know, we went hard on that shit, man. We used to do marathons where we used to just keep squatting 1,000 squats straight. And that would be consistent of a whole workout right there by itself, 1,000 squats. Know if you've ever tried it, but do it before you knock it. Anyway, so at the end of, so after we came off the incident with Mountain and the other guys, I remember that same week we ended up going to ICC. ICC is Institutional Classification Committee. Everybody goes through it. You do it once a month. And basically what it is it's a hearing where they go over your C file. You go in there, there's going to be like the assistant warden. You'll have somebody from mental health. You'll have somebody from gang intel, IGI, a counselor, and then you'll have some other staff members, a variety of different staff members that come in there and sit in. And like I said, they'll go over your C file, whether or not you're a parole violator, a commitment, how much time you got, how you've been programming, whether or not you've been in any trouble, if you got any shoes, you know, any shoe time coming for any kind of 115 offenses or anything like that. So they'll go over everything. And what was interesting about this particular time that I went to committee is that ICC basically told me like this. They said, Mendoza, we've noticed that you've shown a consistent pattern of getting involved in physical altercations. You're becoming a management problem. And if this continues, we're going to have no choice but to throw you on walk alone. And, you know, when you're active and you got to be tough and you can't really respond back, there's only so much you can say. You know, I just kind of looked at him and just smiled. I just kind of smiled. But in my mind, I was saying, motherfucker, you're the ones that are staging this shit. You're the ones that are throwing us out there on these yards, knowing that we're going out there with known documented enemies. And you're telling me that I'm a management problem, that I'm the one fucking up. You guys are so full of fucking shit. But, you know, I didn't say nothing. I just looked at him, smiled, and just kind of shook my head. So after they got through going through all their motions and, you know, we'll see you again in 30 days and going over everything else that they had to go over, that was it. They escorted me back to my cell and that was pretty much it. But, you know, I knew from just them mentioning the fact that walk alone was being kicked around that was going to happen pretty soon. It was going to happen. If whether it happened on the next time we went out or the next 2 or 3 times, I don't know. But, you know, I told Shadow, you know, what they said, and it's like, hey, bro, you know, there's a good possibility that sooner or later we're going to get split up because we keep going out, we keep doing what we got to do. They're going to split us up. And then we're going to get thrown on walk alone. But there's nothing that we can do about it. You know, we got to keep going out. We got to keep doing what we got to do. And I mean, that's the bottom line. So, you know, that was pretty much it as far as classification and what happened that week. Nothing else really happened. You know, I spent that next 10 days just watching and observing again. Whenever they did run yard, whoever went out, anything that I could catch or, you know, see on the tier, I was just always posted up. That was the thing that was different about Corcoran. You know, Pelican Bay is the same way. You could be up there in the Bay, and even though, like, during the time when I was up there in the early 90s as well, when there was no door policy, when we didn't have an agreement established with the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood, you know, you always knew that the possibility of the door opening up, that was a real thing that you had to deal with every day. But the likelihood of it happening all the time or a lot, it wasn't going to happen. So, you know, it's a little different in Corcoran. You're always in Pelican Bay, you're always right there during the daytime when they're running program. I used to have my mattress rolled up and sat right there by the door, especially when they run showers and especially when I was by myself in a cell by myself. I always wanted to be ready just in case. But in Corcoran, you know something's going to happen. That's why the atmosphere is a little different over there. You know you're in a war and something's bound to kick off sooner or later. So you're constantly watching out that door. And besides that, at that time, we didn't have a TV. I was a parole violator, just like Shadow. So neither one of us had a TV. It was just straight fucking just reading books and, you know, we didn't really have nothing to do up in the cell, but just kick it, talk about shit and kill time like that. We didn't get to sit back and watch TV and all that shit. You know, that would come later, but they were on order. However, at that time, I didn't have a TV, I didn't have radio, neither did my celly. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to tell you guys is that whenever you got into an incident over there in Corcoran, you got written up, there was a process, and everybody learned that process. You learned it fast, and if you didn't learn it through experience, somebody told you. Like when you got there, they told you, hey, this is what you need to do. But it was something that was commonly known over there. So when you got a 115 for physical altercation on the yard, you just pled guilty. Normally in the past, if I got written up for a possession of a weapon or something like that, and I was going to try to beat it, I would contest it, and they would assign me an investigative employee that would investigate. So I mean, at least that's what they say he's going to do. He'll go talk to some witnesses, that somebody that might be able to help you and shit like that. But that used to, in a normal situation or other situations outside of this Corcoran shoe war, sometimes you would contest it instead of just pleading guilty. But over there in Corcoran, what you would do is you plead guilty, because if you didn't plead guilty and you contested it, it would hold up the process. You would stay on CTQ longer than 10 days. If you wanted to continue to go out to the yard every 10 days, you would just go and plead guilty. As soon as you walk in, guilty. And they just, boom, you get 10 days CTQ, and that was it. But like I said, if you contested it and you tried to go that route, then you'd be on CTQ. I imagine, I'm not aware of anybody personally that did it, but as much as dudes did not want to go out to the yard, I imagine it was probably some cats that probably did contest it so that they wouldn't have to go out. Because there's a lot of dudes did not want to go out to the yard. They might have went out because they had to, but they really didn't want to go out. So, I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But as far as us, that's what we did. We go into our 115 hearings and we plead guilty. So you take that 10-day CTQ and we be ready to go right back out. And I'm going to tell you like this, because of some of the things that we were learning over there, some of the things that were happening, and I assumed certain things that ended up kind of backfiring. I never took nothing for granted no more. So like the 10-day CTQ, just because they told me, or just because that was the policy, we would be CTQ for 10 days. I would never take that for granted. Every day that they ran yard, we would be suited and booted, standing by the door, ready to go. We used to work out in the morning. So a lot of the times, like when we'd be on our CTQ, we'd have everything ready to go. We'd have our towels on the floor ready to start working out, but we would wait until they ran yard, until they were done running yard. Once they were done running yard and we knew that there wasn't a chance that they would come and get us, then we start working out, because you would never know, man. Sometimes, it could be, maybe it could be 9 days. They come get you on the 9th day. Maybe someone fucks up and don't know you're on CTQ. They'll come get you anyway. Or somebody that just don't care. How long you guys been? 5 days? Fuck it. Let's go. You guys want to go to yard? Let's go. Especially because these motherfuckers were betting. So we didn't take that for granted. Every day that they ran yard, we were ready as if it was a yard day for us. So that was something else that we wouldn't get into our little daily routine until they stopped running yard, until we knew they were done. Now the other thing, real quick, that I just kind of want to touch on is that whenever you catch a in custody violation, you get You go to they serve you with screening papers again, and you catch an in-house violation, and if you contest it, you go to Morrissey and all that. However, it seemed like Corcoran had their own fucking little process. Like screening would offer you 90 days. That was like the standard, what you would get for a physical altercation in prison. And, you know, I was never offered 90 days on the streets. Whenever I got caught up for anything, 90 days that'd be a blessing if I ever caught a 90-day violation. But it was always 10 months, a year, 11 months, 10 months, a year, straight up. I never got anything less than 10 months. But it was almost like they had their own little in-house screening in Morrissey, people that would come in almost like they knew that, hey, these guys are, you know, they're catching 90 days for every time they go out, and that's the standard, because that's what they would always offer you, 90 days. The other thing is there was no mother love. For those of you that have been around for a while that are from Northern California, I'm pretty sure they only covered Northern California. There used to be there was a female that her name was, they used to call her Mother Love. She used to give out love to motherfuckers. I'm talking about, I don't know, every day was Christmas for her. Every day was her birthday, because she was blessing people with, you know, you catch some straight, like a robbery or something, and she give you 4 or 5 months. She would never give out years or like in any 10 months. It was always, that's why they called her Mother Love. There was also an Africano, I forget what they called him. Let's call him Brother Hate, because this motherfucker used to, didn't matter what you did, what you were there for, he used to dog you out. 10 months, a year. Cat came in, he was like an old school pimp, wore a fedora. He had all kind of gold chains and rings on. He was blinged out, but none of them ever came up there. It wasn't the regular Morrissey people that, you know, you would see over there in Santa Rita or in other Northern California county jails. So, you know, that was the other thing. So the other thing that I want to kind of touch on is, like, after the incident that we had with Monster and the other guys, so one of the things that I noticed is that it seemed like my cellie, Shadow, was hanging his head about what happened on that yard. And, you know, I had to sit him down and I had to talk to him and give him some moral support and help him build his confidence back up, because it was like he's beating himself up because he felt like, you know, he could have done better, that we should have done better. But we got packed out, for one. But I mean, what are you tripping on? You know what I mean? It's not like somebody got just thrashed, knocked out. Really, it was a two on two, 2-on-1. You know, you had 2 on you, I had 2 on me. Really, somebody should have got Elephant Man, or somebody should have got knocked out. It wasn't like that. You know, they got the better hand that day, and that's all it is. But you're looking at it all wrong, bro. You know, I had to tell him that's not how you should be looking at it anyway, because it's not about wins or losses, man. You know, everybody wants to go out and be the best man. Everybody wants to get that knockout. Everybody wants to go out there and throw a quick 5-piece on somebody and lay them the fuck out. You know what I mean? Barefoot, bottoms, feet up, you know what I'm saying? But and stiffen a motherfucker up. But it's not about that, man. It's really not about that. Maybe on an individual basis, if that's how you're looking at it for you, if that's what you're looking for, wins or losses, then that's your trip. But what matters at the end of the day is that you go out and you do what's expected of you, and you go out and you fulfill the expectations that your team is expecting. That's all that matters, is that you continuously honor, you know, what you believe in. Nothing else matters. And not everybody can say that. You know, again, man, you know, you guys got to remember, these fights, they never go the distance. They hardly ever go the distance unless you get a gunner that just kicks back and just like, you know what, you motherfuckers, go ahead, man. Air it out, do your thing. But that don't happen. You got 30 seconds before they're going to fire that first round. So, you know, already you're fighting under a gun. You're already at a disadvantage. Sometimes the numbers are not, they're not fair. and then you're fighting out there barefoot on a concrete yard. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that factor in, and they're not excuses, but it's just, it is what it is. If you really want to call them wins or losses, then okay, but none of them ever go the distance. Everybody gets proned out. Sometimes you get somebody to go out there and throw a quick 3-piece on somebody, knock somebody the fuck out, but it doesn't happen that often. And again, I had to let the homie know, man, you got to stop looking at it like that, bro. You got to stop looking at it. I'm not looking at it like that. We got packed out the last yard, but what do you expect? It was 2-on-1. You know what I mean? I mean, what were you expecting to do? Like, you were expecting to knock both those cats out? You should feel good about, what you did. You didn't get dropped. You stayed on your feet. You ain't lumped up. You ain't even got a black eye. So what are you talking about, bro? You know what I'm saying? No. But it's all about how you look at it, man. And like I kept telling the homie, man, at the end of the day, it's not about W's and L's, man. It's not about that. It's about representing what you believe in. And it's about just going out and doing what you got to do like a soldier. And it's respectable. You can't do nothing but respect it. Your adversaries respect it the same way that I respected Mountain, Wino, Pee Wee, all them other cats. I respected them the same way, and I'm sure they respected us as adversaries. They had to, no matter what. Yeah, maybe right after you come in off the yard and you're still all fired up and the adrenaline's going, you might say something and fuck that dude. But at the end of the day, you go back to your cell and you cool your jets and everything's back to normal. You're gonna give that man his respects. Like, hey, this motherfucker, at least he's going out there and he's getting off with me. At least he's making an appearance out there. At least he's going out. And not everybody can say that. So, it's something that I had to talk to him about one time, and it seemed like after that time he got it, and that's all that mattered. But that's what you do. A brother needs moral support, or he needed, I think he just needed some guidance, man. He was looking at it the wrong way, and that's all it was. I didn't want him to start second guessing himself and go out there and now he ain't got no confidence. And hey, bro, hey, let's go out there and do it all over again the next time and the next time and every time they open up the doors, and let's have fun, bro. Let's have fun. Let's do our thing, and that's all we can do. For the next couple of days, every time they ran yard, like I told you guys, I'm always right there on the door. I'm always watching, ready before we got down and did our routine. Now, there was an Africano that was down at the other end. And, this guy used to go to the yard intermittently whenever he wanted to go out. He kept motherfuckers guessing. He would just go out sometimes, and then for the most part, he would stay in. But unannounced, unexpectedly, sometimes he would just go out. And, I tried to touch base with him one time when they ran showers. I was in the shower, and I called down to him, but he never responded. He would never communicate with nobody. So, I figured he was lightweight J-Cat, probably schizophrenic. I don't know. But he was somebody that he was just on the tier, and he ended up being a J-Cat. But anyway, I'll go into him on the next episode because there's some things that I'm going to talk about with regards to him. So, the other thing before I get to our next yard is that, just from being on the tier back there, just from just the day-to-day, just tier living, interacting, hearing people talk on the tier and whatnot, one of the things that I got to notice about Weddle Smooth, one of the emeros that was on the tier, is that homeboy seemed like a cool-ass cat. He seemed like cool people. You guys know how sometimes, you'll run across somebody and you'll be like, man, that's a cool ass dude. I bet you that cat would be cool to drink with or to party with. He just seems like some good people. That's how Weddle Smooth came across. He was a real charismatic, friendly type of outgoing individual that, he just he was a cool dude, man. Never was you never, the cat never had a bad attitude. He was always positive, man. He was always positive on the tier. So I took a liking to him, and we had conversations on the tier where we talked. We talked about literature. We talked about some historical things that that we had a difference of opinion on. We talked about all kind of stuff. So, even when like if he needed coffee or if he didn't make it to the store and we made it, I sent him down a care package. Whatever he needed, I let him know. It was like, hey, whatever you need, it's nothing but respect here, And I got at him and let him know, hey, I've been up to the Bay. I was over there in the adjustment center with your people. I know Ronnie Ayala, Hector, Chato, and all them cats. So, he knew I had been around, and we had an open line of communication. So, I knew that if we ever ended up going to yard together, that I would feel bad having to go out there and get into it with the dude, because I took a liking to the dude. And it was an awkward situation to be in because he was an adversary. He was on the other side. He was on the other team. But, I've been up there in Pelican Bay with some cool-ass Southsiders, some cool-ass Nazi lowriders, ABs, and they were cool cats where, I wasn't hoping that the door would open up so we can get into it with these cats. There were some cool-ass dudes. We broke bread together. So it was kind of like that with Weddle Smooth. His celly, not so much. Ricky, he was just kind of there, and he kind of stayed back in the cuts. But he we interacted with him as well. The only other thing that I'll say before I get into the next yard is that every time that we went to the yard, we learned something new. We learned something. We talked about everything that happened. We learned from it, and we used it to our advantage. One of the things that we talked about that had happened on the last yard with Mountain and Patches, Beaver, and Spider is that, they for a minute, they set up that scrimmage. And that's not something that we had ever talked about. It was something that they did. I don't know if they planned to do it like that, but they did. They boxed us in. They set up a scrimmage, and we had to break through that scrimmage. The other thing is, like, whenever we go out to a yard where there's more than two other adversaries out there, is it to our advantage to try to kind of stay close to each other? Or is it just wherever we end up? Like what happened out there, where he ended up being way across on the other side of the yard, and I was all the way in the back. So we were kind of spread out. And then, when the gunner let him go at it the way that he did, I was at a distance. And, I got up, but I couldn't make it over there before he already got a shot off. So, we talked about all that stuff. We talked about, not assuming nothing, always being ready, because it seemed like every time you got complacent and you thought something was going to happen a certain way, they switch it up and it would have something else would happen. They spin it on you. So it was a trip. Corcoran was a trip, man. You had to really be on your toes. So one day they're running yard. Okay. They're running yard. And like every day, we were ready to get our workout on. It had been like 9 days. Every time we got 10 days, I used to write it down, put it on our little calendar. So we knew when that 10th day was, even though we never would assume that we might go out before those 10 days, we still always knew what that 10th day was, what day it landed on. So we're at 9 days and they're running the yard. So they go down the tier, they bypass us, they bypass Mountain, and they go all the way down, and they get Weddle Smooth and Ricky, and they let them out. So they let them out. I'm watching them. They strip them out in the pod, and then they take them out, and they disappear. They go out to the yard. So I'm standing there. I'm watching these COs come back in. They walk back in. They go back to the end of the other end of the section to run the next yard. And I'm looking up at the tower, and you can see if you look at the tower, depending on what cells you're in, you can see the reflection of the tier on the windows of the tower. So I seen where they were. Looking at the tower, I can see where the COs were at, and they were walking down the tier. And when they started coming closer, it didn't make no sense because we were all on that side. We were all CTQ for the next 10 days, unless they were just going to walk the tier. But what they did is they popped right up in front of our cell, and they asked us if we wanted to go to yard. And it completely caught us off guard. Even though this was something that we talked about, we still, our 10 days was up the following day. And as soon as they asked us, we were like, yeah, most definitely. But we were like discombobulated. I'm grabbing my towel, my t-shirt, he's grabbing his, but we're like all just discombobulated from being caught off guard. It's like, oh yeah, yard, great. Best time of the day. Lucky us. We get to go to the yard and get shot at today. Hell yeah. So, we're like two wounded warriors, man, getting our shit, and we go through all the motions, man. They cuff us up, and my mind's racing. I'm already thinking like, damn, Weddle Smooth and his celly Ricky. So we go out to the front of the pod, we strip out. And, at some point right there, I tell my celly, I tell him, hey, you got Ricky. I got Weddle Smooth. But, I almost thought about because out of the two, it seemed like Weddle Smooth was probably, looking at both of them, Weddle Smooth was probably the more aggressive of the two. It was almost like I wanted to tell my celly, hey, you want to get him and I'll grab Ricky. But, I always took the cat that was the one that was bigger, or the one who I thought was more aggressive. And, even though, I was kind of looking at it as like, damn, man, I'm getting ready to go out there and fight an old friend. I had to get that out of my mind, man. I had to stay focused on what was happening, put it in the right context. Homeboy's still an adversary. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to take it personal. And knowing how Weddle Smooth was, hey, he's a warrior, and he wasn't going to take it personal. All those emotions and all that hostility and animosity, you might be feeling it 5-10 minutes after yard, but once your jets cool down and everything's back to normal, it's everything's going to go back to the way it was. So, it was something that was going to happen. It was inevitable. It wasn't like, I could control this. I didn't have no control over it. So, we stripped out, and then they took us over to the little sally port, or whatever you want, the little enclosure before the yard. And like I always did, whenever we were walking up to that enclosure, I was always the first one. Whether if I had a cell, it just didn't matter. I always took the lead. So one of the things I used to always do is look through I could see through the pod door and through the yard door. You could see both of them if you're at a certain angle. So when I looked, I couldn't see nobody on the line. They weren't on the line. They were like halfway back in the yard, facing the building, just standing there. But they weren't walking laps. They weren't posted up. So, I looked at them, took a mental note. My celly looked at them when I was stripping out. And after my celly strips out, the door opens. I'm feeling sick. My mouth is dry. My stomach is fucked up. The same way I always felt every time I got ready to go out to a yard. I felt the same way every time, especially this time, man. And, I don't want to sound like some fucking pansy motherfucker, man, but I like this dude. And again, I was having to go in on him. So it wasn't something that I was looking forward to. It was an awkward situation. If you guys have been in a situation like that, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know what I'm talking about. I know there's some Southsiders out there, you know that ended up taking a liking to some Northerners at some point, and then a war kicks off on the yard, and you end up having to fucking go at it with these cats, and it's just an awkward situation. Anyway, I remember making eye contact with Weddle Smooth. He's, when him and his celly Ricky were standing out there, they knew it was like when the door opened, they were just standing there waiting. And well, as soon as they seen us in the Sally, I don't know if they knew we were coming out. I don't know if the COs told them, hey, you guys are going to go out with these Northerners, but they seen us in the Sally port. I made eye contact with Weddle Smooth. When the door opened, I seen Shadow go towards Ricky. And, out of the side of my eye, my peripheral, I seen Shadow, when they started going at it, I seen him maneuver himself around Ricky and get him to turn his back to the tower so that he could watch the tower. And, I just said to myself, when I seen that, it was like, attaboy, the homie was learning, man. And that's something that we had talked about, and he had never done that before. Anyway, so I make eye contact with Weddle Smooth, and I'm walking at him. I drop my t-shirt, my towel. I kick my shower shoes, not my shower shoes. I kick my jap flaps off, and we square up, and we start going at it. Boom, bop, bing, bop, my shoe. Hey, but we're throwing bombs though, on the real. I just came off a two loss losing streak, and homeboy's about to feel my wrath, man. There's no way that I'm gonna take 3 losses. There's just no way. So I mean, we're going at it. We're both throwing bombs. Think back, think back. So anyway, I got nothing but respect for Weddle Smooth, but I caught him with a smoking Joe Frazier right cross, and homeboy did the cholo meme, man, straight up. I knew the fight was over at that point. So as soon as I cracked him, the gunner got off with the first round on the Bertha, and it was over between me and Weddle. It was over. I could have went in on him, but I didn't. Shadow and Ricky were still fighting, but right after that first shot, the second shot came, which I think that, so let me just say this. So when they fired the first round, I looked up at the control. I looked up at the tower, and I seen a bunch of faces, so I knew that the COs were back up there watching again. This is like, you have Northerners going at it with Mexican mafia members. So they probably bet on this one. And I could have swore I seen a female up there. Anyway, the first shot, right after the first shot, the second shot came. So I'm thinking, man, that another CO had another fucking knee knocker, and he shot right after the first one because they came fast, man. They came hell too fast. Motherfucker, usually in the past when I've seen them get off, they'll drop that first canister, load up another one, pop it back, and they'll get off again. But this shit just came in rapid succession. Boom, boom. So after we all proned out, they pull us off the yard one by one, and they put us in cages back in the building, and we get medically cleared and all that good stuff, and then we go back to ourselves. That was it. Like I said, man, everybody, right after an incident like this, everybody's adrenaline still going. People are still pumped up. And, although none of us were talking shit, sometimes that's when people are talking shit. But when you calm down and everything, you everything goes back to normal and you put it all in perspective. It was like the next day, there was no animosity on the tier. Nothing changed. Weddle was still the same Weddle that he was before, man. It was almost like at some point I wanted to get at him on paper and tell him, hey, man, you know what? These COs are the ones that are setting up this shit. But he already knew what it was, man. So, I didn't want to overstep those boundaries. I didn't want to get at him like that. And I just let it go, and after that, the first opportunity I had where we communicated. It was like nothing. You know, like I said, I knew he was a warrior, and I knew he wasn't gonna be one to take it personal and act all funny style, and I didn't either. And it was what it was, man. And matter of fact, he even said on the tier, um, but you know, he was the type of individual that would joke a lot. He'd always be clowning on the tier. And I could have swore one time I heard him on the tier. Not too long after that, like a day or two later, he was telling Lazy or one of the other sureños, he was like, yeah, man, he was like, you know, the last time I went out to the yard, man, the last time I felt like that was the last time I drunk some motherfucking Jose Cuervo, you know what I'm saying? Like he was clowning about it. Anyway, that's pretty much what happened. We pled guilty. We had another 10 days before the next incident. The next incident is going to be a trip, man. You guys are going to trip out on the next incident that would go down. It was something completely unexpected. And, you know, I'm not surprised because Corcoran there was always something that was happening that was out of the norm, out of the ordinary. You would expect something to happen, but something entirely different would happen. And that's what ended up happening. We didn't get moved. We didn't get separated. I didn't get put on walk alone. So, you know, I was waiting for it. I actually thought that was going to happen. And we kind of prepared ourselves for that. The last thing I'm going to touch on is so right after that, I'm going to say about 2 days after the incident on the yard, something crazy happened. And I want to just tell you guys like this. So one day we ended up getting our lunches. We got our lunches, and you know, when we used to get our lunches over there, right after we'd look in there, make sure that we had everything, and that was just a routine. It was a habit to make sure you didn't get shorted on something. So my celly was going through his lunch, and inside of his lunch, inside of an extra paper bag, there were two razors. Two full razors that you could still shave with. They weren't broken down. They were the whole complete razor. Now, I have my theory on how those got there. You know, who knows though? You know, they could have got put there by somebody in the kitchen, or somebody else could have looked out for us. I personally know where they came from, but I'll leave that for you guys to guess, or you guys to make your own, you know, draw your own conclusions. Think about it. You guys already know. You guys are smart, man. Anyway, this is probably a good place to end this one. This episode 34, I'm going to listen to it. I hope it ain't no garbage again. Otherwise, this shit ain't going to go out till next month. You might get it in December. So I'm going to send it to Sandman, have him edit it tonight. We might end up pulling a live. I don't know. We'll see what's up. But anyway, this episode 34, this your boy B, and I'm out.